My daughter-in-law raised her glass at dinner and said loudly, "You're a loser, but my father's new wife isn't—" The whole restaurant went silent while my son looked away. I didn't argue. I just folded my napkin, paid my share, and walked out. A week later, her car was gone. Her accounts were frozen, and my ex-mother-in-law was calling me in panic. But trust me, that was only the beginning of what silence can build. Before I continue the story, please subscribe to the channel and tell me where you're watching from. I love knowing how far these stories travel. The hostess called my name, and I followed her past the bar and the glass case of desserts. I kept my chin level, my purse tucked at my elbow, and my breath steady the way a nurse steadies a needle. This dinner was for Keegan's promotion. A long table waited under low light, the silverware aligned. I took the seat they'd left at the end, close to the aisle, far from the laughter. Isolde greeted me with a glossy kiss in the air. "There she is," so she said, as if the evening had been missing a coat rack. The others picked up their conversations about golf outings and marketing budgets. I poured my own water and listened. When the entrees arrived, I watched my son's face the way I used to watch his fever, alert for any change. He looked handsome in a way I hadn't seen since he was a boy. Dessert came in small white bowls like snow. And that's when Isolde leaned back in her chair and, in her bright June voice, said, "You know, some people marry up. My father's new wife certainly did. But some people, well," she turned her chin toward me, "some people stay stuck. A loser never moves." The room stilled around it. The server stopped pouring coffee. A spoon chimed and went quiet. My throat warmed the way it does before a hard cry, but I held the heat like you hold a hot pan until it cools. I met the server's eyes and gave the smallest smile I had. Keegan said nothing. He stirred the whipped cream into his berries without eating. I could have forgiven the insult. Strangers have said worse in hospital hallways when the news was bad. But my own child's silence laid a hand on my chest and pressed. The pressure wasn't new. It was the weight of errands, careful economies, the roof I kept over his head through double shifts. Being called a loser was a pinprick. His quiet was the knife that followed. I looked at Keegan's hands, bigger now, the knuckles I iced after Little League, and realized the grip I kept on our history was mine alone. He had loosened his without a word. There are endings that slam doors and endings that simply stop sending drafts under the threshold. This felt like the second kind, quiet, chilly, efficient. I sat with it until the cold told me what to do next. I set down my spoon. I smoothed my napkin flat on my lap, folded one corner to the middle, then the other, then the top to make a square. 4 breaths. Fold, 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 breathe. When I finished, I placed the square on the plate like a flag at rest. I took my wallet and left a bill for the wine I hadn't finished. "Thank you," I said. Even Isolde's smile tilted the way a picture tilts when a nail loosens. Keegan still did not look up. Outside, Houston heat rose from the pavement. My car waited under the oaks, the windshield holding the last light. I sat, hands on the wheel, and let the engine idle until the air turned cool. The skyline lifted ahead, sharp and indifferent. I drove, and in the hum of the freeway I replayed the evening like replaying a voicemail to catch what I missed. On the drive, I named what was mine and what I had loaned to love. Some things can be returned politely. Others require a signature, a lock, a key. I would choose the polite where I could, the lock where I must, if they see me as nothing. I thought, perhaps it's time they learn what nothing can do. I began an inventory with the same calm I used to count pills on a tray. The house deed with my name alone. The savings I grew one overtime at a time, the small LLC for the rental, the car title, the lease I co-signed years ago and kept renewing out of habit and hope. I saw order, boundaries. A mother cannot be a winter coat hung by the door. By the time I left the freeway, the insult had cooled from fire to iron. I parked in my driveway and sat a moment listening to crickets. The house held its quiet the way a church does after a hymn. I set my purse on the console and went to the desk by the window where the magnolia outside taps in a south wind. A notebook waited, its cover the color of old envelopes. On the first page, I had written one word months ago when I started gathering receipts and contracts. Magnolia. It reminded me that beauty and backbone grow on the same tree. I uncapped a pen. Day 1, I wrote. I said nothing, but I began. I drew a line under it like a plank across a creek, plain and sturdy. I closed the notebook and set it beside the lamp. In the bedroom, I touched the back of the chair where Keegan used to leave his backpack after school. A dent pressed into the cushion from years of homework. The dent was a history, not a debt. I lay down with the window cracked and the night spoke in soft syllables. Leaf, road, far siren. Sleep came without drama. What needed saying had been said, just not with my voice. Tomorrow would ask for lists and calls, maybe a drive to a bank and a meeting with a notary. Tonight asked for stillness. As the city settled, my silence gathered weight. Not the weight of stone, but the weight of weather. Some storms come with thunder. Others arrive as a line of pressure on the horizon. As the city slept, my silence began to gather weight, like a storm no one saw coming. The house was quiet when I turned the key in the lock. The porch light hummed faintly, and the magnolia branches scraped against the gutter like they were whispering reminders. I slipped off my shoes by habit and walked straight to the small office at the back of the bungalow. The clock read 10:17 p. I didn't feel tired. I felt organized. The steel drawer under my desk gave a low click when I turned the key. Inside, the LLC binder, lease addenda, vehicle management agreement, property management contract, controller authority forms, my old order, the bones beneath the chaos. I pulled each folder out, spreading them across the desk like cards in a familiar game. On a yellow legal pad, I drew boxes and arrows. Who owned what? Who merely used? The ink steadied my breathing. I underlined key clauses, contingent occupancy, conduct, spending authority, executive vehicle authorization, termination rights. Every underline restored a little more of me. The insult from dinner was already a data point. I wrote at the top of the page, Magnolia. Day 1. The paper trail had a name now. By 10:42, I opened my contacts and pressed Malus, civil attorney, friend, the only person who ever called me Commander Arliss, without irony. She answered after the second ring. "You never call late," she said. "I wouldn't if it wasn't real," I replied. Her tone sharpened. "All right, what happened?" I gave her the short version, the dinner, the remark, the silence. Then the long version, the contracts, the shared assets, the silent liabilities. "We'll call it the Magnolia Protocol," I said. T-minus 72 hours. "Vehicle use revocation?" "Yes." "Card authority suspension?" "Yes." "Occupancy review?" "Monday morning." "You'll have the documents tonight." Her keyboard clicked through the line. "All right, chain of custody starts with you. Keep copies. Timestamp every file. Done. But Malus, leave Elowen out of it. She's a child. This stays between the adults and their signatures." "Understood," she said. Her voice softened. "Arliss, you sound ready." I said. "Finally." When the call ended, the house held its breath. I began sending the emails, one by one, to Bram, controller, Subject: Authority review. Immediate. All corporate cards linked to non-owners suspended until audit. Any spend requires controller sign-off. No exceptions. To Astria, property manager. Subject: Lease compliance inquiry. Attached: certified lease pages. Request note on contingent occupancy and conduct expectations. Include template for 72-hour notice if breach confirmed. To Dorian's dispatch, towing contractor. Subject: executive vehicle. Return to lessor. VIN plate. Garage address attached. Use body cam. No confrontation. No explanation. Paper speaks. To Malus. Subject: Protocol Magnolia. Packet 1. PDF bundle of originals. Highlighted clauses. A timeline grid for Monday through Wednesday. No CC to Keegan or Isolde. Silence remained policy. The cursor blinked, and the weight in my chest began to settle. Each sent email clicked like the first turn of a combination lock. Steady, exact. I leaned back, exhaled, and stared at the legal pad again. Beneath the completed boxes, I drew a new section titled Exclusions. No public shaming, no social media, no contact with brands or employers. All consequences would come from contracts, not emotion. I wrote, "Children are off limits," and underlined it twice. I rehearsed the line I'd use when the storm came. This is not punishment, this is ownership, and ownership has terms. The clock read 11:36. The house popped once in the cooling air. I thought of Elowen, her hand in mine at choir practice, the way she hummed along even when she didn't know the words. She would never know this part of the story, and that was the point. Some legacies are built by what you keep off the record. I printed packet covers with dates and initials, sliding each into a manila envelope. The printer's hum was the only sound left. A spreadsheet logged every motion: action, party, reference clause, status, digital timestamps, confirmed delivery receipts. Nothing theatrical, just precision. When I texted "Magnolia is lit" to Malus, her reply came in 3 words: proceed. Good night. I turned off the desk lamp. The soft tick of the clock filled the room. 5 envelopes sat stacked in perfect order, ready to shift the week's gravity by sunrise. By dawn, amber hazard lights would bloom in their garage, and my silence would finally be visible. The morning air was sharp enough to sting. I parked a block away from their house. The car angled behind an elm where I could see the driveway without being seen. The gated street glimmered under early sun, every lawn trimmed, every door pretending peace. At 7:06, "Oh, ma'am." Dorian's tow truck rolled in through the gate, the kind with city tags and professional calm. A security escort followed, clipboard in hand, already briefed by Astria, the property manager. No sirens, no horns, just the mechanical sigh of hydraulics. I checked my phone. Timestamp matched the authorization order. Clauses 4.2, 7.3, 9.1, each one now breathing outside the paper. Across the street, their black SUV gleamed under magnolia light. The company registration decal still sat on its windshield. Clear as day. When respect is gone, I thought, paper speaks louder than tears. The winch line tightened. The truck lifted the front wheels. The sun flashed on the license plate, MAG 87224. For the first time in months, it looked like mine again. Then the calm broke. A door slammed. Isolde burst out in a robe, hair tangled, voice cracking through the stillness. "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" "Morning, ma'am," Dorian said, steady as a clock. "Magnolia LLC vehicle. Retrieval per contract authority." "It's my car," she shouted, stepping barefoot onto the driveway. "No, ma'am," he replied. "You're a listed user. The owner of record is Magnolia LLC. Keegan followed, half-dressed, trying to smooth chaos with reason. Can we just talk to whoever sent you? Dorian nodded toward the clipboard. All contacts are in the packet, sir. We're instructed not to debate. I kept my phone angled low, camera on, recording the timestamp overlay. No commentary. Just proof. Isolde grabbed her phone, called her mother, waited, cursed. The voicemail tone answered. She screamed at the empty air, then turned toward Keegan like he could fix it. But even from here, I saw it. His hands slack, his shoulders caving. When the tow truck pulled away, all sound followed it, leaving only the slow drip of a sprinkler and the sound of her knees hitting the pavement. At 8:30, I was already downtown, sitting across from Mr. Montrusty. Lennox at the bank branch I'd used since 1992. He still called me Miss Morley, though my name on file said Arliss C. Dunn. He reviewed the binder, brows lifting. Magnolia LLC, yes, ma'am. Ownership clear. I need to verify account control and suspend all joint-linked cards until audit, I said. He typed for a moment, eyes flicking between screens. It'll take effect in about an hour. Do you want me to notify the secondary users? I looked at the pen in my hand. No, paper already has. He printed the confirmation sheets, stamped each in blue ink, and slid them across the counter. The sound was clean, almost kind. I placed them in the binder, next to the lease documents. Every signature I had ever earned was finally working. Driving back through the suburbs felt like passing through a dream I'd already outgrown. The streets were lined with oak and magnolia, the air bright with cut grass. At the end of Keegan's block, I slowed. The SUV space was empty now, a dark rectangle of concrete where privilege had parked. A garden hose lay coiled and leaking, sending water down the curb like a slow apology. Isolde sat on the edge of the driveway, her phone pressed to her ear, mascara smeared. Keegan stood a few feet away, staring at nothing. Their house looked smaller without entitlement to fill it. I didn't stop. I didn't wave. I just observed. The way you watch a tide pull back, knowing the ocean doesn't ask permission to retreat. A week ago, I'd have stayed to help them. Today, I'm letting gravity finish what pride began. The radio murmured static as I turned onto the highway. My phone buzzed in the passenger seat. The screen read, Elowen. Grandma, her small voice asked, can we still bake cookies tomorrow? Of course, sweetheart, I said, smiling despite the ache. Always. Okay, I'll bring the sprinkles. Deal. When the call ended, the road stretched ahead, clean, sunlit, quiet. I rested a hand on the binder beside me, the one labeled Magnolia. The world resets quietly when dignity returns. By noon, their phones would stop working, and the silence I chose would finally echo back to them. The River Oaks district was too polished for real drama, which made it the perfect stage for quiet justice. I sat at a corner table near the cafe window, binder resting beside my untouched coffee. The plaza gleamed with glass and chrome, the air-conditioned perfection of money pretending to be manners. Through the window, I saw Isolde at the counter, hair brushed, sunglasses perched, her tone just loud enough to signal confidence. Put it on the business card, she said to the barista. The girl smiled, typed, and pressed the key. Beep. The sound cut through the jazz track playing overhead. A flat denial tone, neither loud nor dramatic, but unmistakable. The barista's hand hovered over the terminal. I'm sorry. It didn't go through. Isolde laughed, the brittle kind that comes before panic. Run it again. It's a company card. Beep. The printer didn't even try this time. No receipt. No approval. Just silence between the two women. I checked my phone. 11:02, me. Screenshot, cafe clock, counter reflection. timestamp, logged. Then I placed the phone face down. I didn't need to gloat. The contracts were talking for me now. Outside, a bus hissed to a stop, drowning the moment before the world resumed, pretending nothing had happened. My email buzzed. Bram. Subject: authorization declined. Controller hold per your directive. He'd attached the full transaction record, merchant code, decline reason, audit tag. Under spend category, he had highlighted luxury hospitality, non-owner. I typed back, thank you. Maintain manual review, no notices. Allow policy to speak. Then I logged the event on the Magnolia spreadsheet. Time: 11:03 a.m. Location: River Oaks Cafe. Clause: 6.1. Unauthorized corporate spend. Status: observed. Paper didn't need witnesses. It needed timestamps. At 11:18, another ping. Seraphine. Brand partnerships. Subject: temporary hold. Conduct review. Her message was crisp. Per Section 8, reputation clause invoked. Pending restaurant incident report filed earlier this morning. Public image threshold triggered. Calendar invites suspended pending review. I read it twice. Isolde's upcoming influencer brunch. Her brand collabs. Even the travel event next week. All grayed out in the attached calendar screenshot. I typed my reply, acknowledged. Please route communications through counsel. No public comment. The printer in my office would have warmed by now, waiting for me to add this page to the growing binder. I slid the email into a new folder titled Policy Hold Notices. Beneath the cafe timestamp, I wrote neat script. Paper spoke again. My phone vibrated. Keegan, twice. I ignored the first, then let the second ring. On the third, I answered. Mom, he said, voice tight. Whatever you're doing, she's scared. I looked at the reflection of my coffee in the glass. I'm not doing anything I didn't sign my name under. Son. She says people are calling. Something about her card. Her brand account. Then she can show them the agreements. I interrupted softly. They'll explain more clearly than I can. Silence stretched. Then, quieter. Can we meet? Just talk. Come Monday, I said. We'll sit with Melis. No shouting. Bring your questions. Bring your courage. For a moment, I heard the boy he'd been at 12. Unsure, decent, trying to fix what he didn't break. But this wasn't a scraped knee, this was structure. The line went quiet. Then, a click. By noon, the plaza had returned to normal. Spoons, chatter, the hum of money moving elsewhere. I took one last sip of now cold coffee and opened my notebook. One sentence. Paper spoke. I did not. I closed the cover, tipped the waitress with a 20 for her kindness, and stepped into the Houston heat. The glass door reflected my image back at me. Plain shirt, silver hair, eyes steady. A woman who knew what she owned, and what she would never surrender again. By evening, an envelope with 32 numbered paragraphs would be on their kitchen island, each one a clause I had lived by for years. At exactly 6:15, the courier's van pulled up to their driveway. I watched from my porch camera feed, the distance between us no longer measured in miles, but in pages. He carried a thick envelope sealed in magnolia gold. Conduct review. Magnolia Holdings, stamped across the front. Certified, signature required. Isolde answered the door, wine glass in hand, eyes narrowing. Just leave it, she said. The courier shook his head. Signature required, ma'am. Keegan appeared behind her, weary, his tie gone, sleeves rolled. He took the envelope, scribbled his name, and the courier left. She swirled her drink, muttering, "She's really going this far." But Keegan opened it. The sound of tearing paper cut through the house. Inside, 32 numbered paragraphs. each initialed and notarized, my name on every page. He spread them across the marble counter like evidence in a trial they didn't know they'd already lost. The air thickened. Even the refrigerator hum seemed to hold its breath. Clause 7. Misuse of company property, vehicle. Clause 14. Breach of decorum in public spaces representing Magnolia Holdings. Clause 21. Personal expenditure without pre-approval. Clause 28. Termination of benefits upon misconduct. Keegan read them aloud, his voice shrinking as he went. Isolde tried to laugh, but it came out hollow. She couldn't. He found the final clause and went still. All previous authority, he read softly, is hereby suspended pending review. The glass slipped from her fingers. Red wine bled across the counter, spreading through the clauses like ink on confession paper. God, Keegan, she's serious, Isolde snapped. This is insane. He didn't answer. He just kept reading. Slower now, as if saying the words might soften them. Minutes later, the silence broke again, her voice sharp with panic. I'm calling Mom. She dialed, pacing. They froze everything. Mom, everything. Evelyn's voice came through tight and shaken. What did you do to her? Nothing she didn't deserve, Isolde hissed, but her tone betrayed her. Frantic, unraveling. From my end, sitting quietly on the porch swing, my phone buzzed. A new voicemail, and her call must have hit my number first. Speaker left on, pocket dial. I turned the volume low, static. Then Evelyn's breath. You should fix it before she fixes you, she said, her voice trembling. The line cut. I looked out over the darkening street, fireflies flickering between the azaleas. I whispered to myself, protocol complete. Back inside, the clock read 8:47 p. I logged the delivery time, archived the receipt photo, saved the voicemail file. One more line in the Magnolia notebook. Delivery confirmed. Silence holds. On my desk, a photo of my late husband smiled up at me, his arm around a younger me, both of us sunburned and laughing at some forgotten picnic. You always said, I murmured. People show their truth when the paper arrives. I brewed chamomile tea, the scent filling the quiet. For the first time in days, my hands didn't shake. The ache in my chest wasn't pain anymore. It was weight, properly placed. At 9:02 p.m., my phone lit up. A text from Elowen. Grandma. Dad looked sad today. Did you fight? I typed, no, sweet one. Grown-ups are just learning lessons. I deleted the longer message I wanted to send about love, boundaries, and silence, and replaced it with a single heart emoji. Outside, thunder rolled far off, soft and low, as if nature were closing the day's ledger. By Sunday morning, not even their phones would be on speaking terms. The house was quiet enough to hear the coffee drip. I woke to the faint vibration of a phone that didn't connect, just the hum of something trying and failing to reach me. The landline blinked. No service. My cell screen read, number blocked. For a moment, I sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the stillness. It wasn't punishment, it was confirmation. The silence I had engineered was finally here. I brewed coffee, the scent of roasted pecan filling the kitchen. My notebook lay open on the counter, Phase 3 complete, communications frozen. I wrote it down with steady hand. Sometimes silence is the loudest apology. The morning light pressed through the blinds in slow bands. Outside, a mockingbird hopped along the fence, chirping into the void. I envied its simplicity. Sing, wait, repeat. By 10 o'clock, I'd cleaned the porch steps and watered the magnolias. Then the hum of an unfamiliar engine broke the calm. A beige sedan rolled up the street and stopped at my gate. Out stepped Evelyn. pearls, pressed blouse, and the kind of posture that used to mean she had control. "Arliss," she called, voice already sharpened. "We need to talk." I stayed seated on the porch swing. "You're here, so talk." She clutched her handbag like it held her dignity. "Undo whatever you did. This thing is ruining us." I sipped my coffee. "I didn't ruin you, Evelyn. You signed the partnership papers. You agreed to the clauses." Her face flushed. "You tricked them. You knew they didn't understand what they were signing." I stood, walked to the screen door, and retrieved a folder. Clause 14 was paper-clipped on top. I handed it to her. "Breach of decorum in public representation," I said evenly. "Your daughter made that breach on camera in a restaurant during business hours." Evelyn blinked, her lipstick trembling. "You sound proud of this." "No," I said. "I sound awake." She opened her mouth, shut it again, then stormed toward her car. Her keys jingled, hands shaking. She pressed her phone to her ear mid-stride, muttering, "I'm telling her right now." That's when I heard it. Through the open window of her idling sedan came another voice, Isolde's, thin and cutting through static. She deserved it, Mom. I wanted her gone. Keegan was never supposed to find out. Evelyn froze. The phone slipped slightly in her hand. Our eyes met across the driveway. "You might want to hang up," I said quietly. Evelyn's voice broke. "I didn't know. Now you do," I replied, and turned back toward the porch. She sat there for a long moment before driving away, tires crunching on gravel, pearls glinting like a confession too late to take back. The sky dimmed with the gray-blue calm before rain. I felt no triumph, no heat of victory, just the cooling weight of truth finally spoken, by noon. I sat in the back pew of St. Matthew's. The choir sang Blessed Assurance. My lips moved with the melody, my voice a whisper between verses. The pew wood was warm beneath my palms. My phone rested in my handbag, dark, silent, obedient. I thought of forgiveness, not as something I owed them, but as something I could finally give myself. I wasn't erasing them. I was erasing the power they once had over my peace. During the offering, I slipped a folded note into the basket instead of a check. Let grace do what justice cannot. When the service ended, sunlight pooled through the stained glass, scattering color across the aisle. I pinned my magnolia brooch back onto my lapel and stepped outside. The air was cooler now, clean after the morning storm that never quite came. On the walk home, I passed by an elderly couple holding hands, laughing softly over something small. Their peace was quiet, ordinary, and that made it holy. I smiled, not for what I'd done, but for what I'd stopped needing to do. By Monday morning, their silence would turn into a knock on my lawyer's door. The waiting room smelled faintly of lemon polish and nerves. I sat with a paper cup of coffee gone cold, watching the frosted glass door that led to Melis's office. A receptionist typed steadily, each keystroke louder than it should have been. At 9:17, the door opened. Keegan and Isolde entered together, though they didn't look like a pair anymore. He carried a stack of papers. She carried herself like someone walking through smoke, sunglasses hiding a sleepless night. "Mrs. Hawthorne," Melis greeted, nodding politely. "Mr. and Mrs. Ann Crow." No warmth, no hostility, just law. We shook hands, the kind that barely touch. It's strange how love looks like paperwork when respect is gone. We took our seats. Melis opened a slim binder stamped Magnolia Holdings, Audit Review. The blinds behind her desk drew lines of light across the table. "The purpose of this meeting," she began, is to finalize the audit findings and address any responses before closing the account. Her voice was even clinical. She turned the pages and citing misuse of funds, conduct violations, unauthorized charges. Isolde broke first. "This is absurd," she snapped. "You're twisting everything." Melis didn't blink. "Every figure here is supported by documentation, time-stamped and signed." She placed copies in front of them. Vehicle lease misallocation, luxury expenditures, restaurant receipts exceeding your authorization. Keegan's voice was small. "You said it was just expenses." Isolde's laugh was brittle. "Oh, come on, Keegan. She's doing this to humiliate us." I said nothing. Truth doesn't need anger. It arrives with receipts. Melis flipped to the next section. "There is also a recorded statement from your client call, Mrs. Crow, in which you identified yourself as managing partner." "I never said that," Isolde shot back, voice rising. Melis pressed play. Isolde's own voice filled the room. "I'll handle that personally. I'm the partner's representative." Silence followed, sharp as glass. Keegan's hand trembled as he reached for the clause sheets. "Can I see the originals?" Melis handed them over. Blue ink, initials, K. I. Side by side. He turned pale. "You forged mine, didn't you?" Isolde stared straight ahead. Her silence was louder than any denial. He sank back, the paper shaking in his hands. For the first time in weeks, he looked at me, not as an opponent, but as something he used to know. "Mom," he began, voice cracking. I raised a hand gently. "Finish the audit first. Apologies mean more when the books are clean." The room went still. Then came the break. Isolde shot up, knocking her chair to the floor. "You've ruined everything," she shouted. "Everything." Melis signaled to security with a glance. 2 uniformed guards appeared at the door. She backed away, muttering, "You'll regret this," before they guided her out, her heels scraping across the tile. Keegan covered his face with both hands. Melis slid a notarization across the table. "Final termination of joint privileges. Please sign." I did, my pen steady. She witnessed and stamped it. I wanted to hug him, but that would undo the lesson. Outside, Houston heat pressed down like a hand on my shoulder. I stood under the shaded awning while the city noise hummed, a low, endless pulse of traffic and life continuing. Minutes later, Keegan stepped out. His eyes were red, his tie crooked. "I thought she was protecting me," he said quietly. I met his gaze. "You can't be protected from truth, son. You can only delay it." He nodded, staring at the pavement as though it might explain everything he'd missed. We stood there for a long moment, mother and son, strangers and kin, the space between us measured not by distance but by understanding. I turned toward my car. The asphalt shimmered in the heat, the air smelling faintly of tar and exhaust. In the reflection of the glass door behind me, I saw him standing at the curb, between who he was and who he might still become. By dusk, a call from an unfamiliar number would test whether mercy still had room in me. The diner was half empty, the way I liked it. The air smelled of coffee and butter, and the waitress refilled my cup without asking. I sat by the window, the same corner booth I'd visited for years, where I could see the street but stay unseen. The world had finally quieted. I opened my binder, wrote Aftermath at the top of a fresh page, and listed the date, time, and a single line underneath. Peace is heavier than anger, but it fits better. The reflection in the glass looked older than I remembered, lines deeper, eyes softer, but steadier. The waitress smiled and said, "Evening, Ms. Hawthorne." It wasn't the politeness people gave to gray hair. It was the kind they gave to someone who'd earned it. I tipped well and lingered over the coffee. The day had been long, and silence had a weight all its own. Then the phone rang. Unknown number. My hand hovered above it. For a heartbeat, I thought of ignoring it. Then something, habit, intuition, made me swipe to answer. Hello? Static, then a voice. Small, trembling. I didn't know where else to call. Isolde? I said nothing. Waiting. I'm at a motel outside town, she said. They froze everything. I have nothing. You have to believe me. Someone used me. Her words came out uneven, part truth, part panic. I could hear cars in the background, a television somewhere, and the hollow echo of a cheap room. Used you? I asked quietly. She sniffled. Evelyn, she said she'd handle the transfers. I didn't know what she was doing. I felt something twist in me, compassion trying to rise, caution pressing it down. You made your choices, I said, but I'll listen, once. While she talked, my thumb slid to the side of the phone, tapping, record, old habits. My lawyer's voice echoed in my mind, always document before you decide. Her story stumbled out, how Evelyn had forged financial forms in both their names, how she'd told Isolde to keep me distracted, to play the role of dutiful wife while they restructured assets. She said you'd never notice, that you were too sentimental. The irony was almost poetic. On my laptop screen, an email blinked from Malis. Secondary fraud trail discovered. Working with bank compliance. I let Isolde talk until her voice thinned. Then I said softly, Mercy doesn't mean blindness. It means I'll let truth finish its work. Please, she whispered, don't let her win. Where are you? A pause. Then she gave the motel name. I typed it. Forwarded it to Malis with 3 words. Safety check. No contact. For a while. I sat there listening to the faint hum of the line, her breathing uneven. Then she said, You really recorded this, didn't you? I didn't answer. When I ended the call, my screen flashed, recording saved. The drive took 15 minutes. I didn't tell myself why I was going. I just needed to see the place. The motel's neon sign flickered like a broken heartbeat. Vacancy, its red light staining the pavement. I parked a block away, engine idling. She was in one of the upper rooms, light seeping through faded curtains. I texted Malis, Do I go in? The reply came fast. You've done enough. Let her face it. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel. Forgiveness is not rescue. It's permission to stop bleeding. I whispered that to myself, like a prayer. A siren wailed somewhere in the distance. I closed my eyes and let it pass. Then I turned the car around. The red lights on the drive home seemed longer than usual, the kind that make you notice your own breathing. At the last one, I stopped completely, no traffic behind me. On the passenger seat, my phone still blinked with a small red dot. Recording. Steady. Silent. I pressed save and typed the title, Mercy, Monday, 9:28 p.m. The city exhaled around me, and I finally exhaled with it. By Tuesday morning, the recording would no longer belong to me. It would belong to the law. The fluorescent lights at City Hall hummed like they had something to confess. I signed in at the procurement committee desk. The magnolia binder balanced on my knees like an old, loyal friend. Water pitchers, microphones, nameplates, the machinery of accountability, polished but impersonal. When the clerk called the roll, I steadied my breathing. Community library renovation, phase 1. That was our project. Magnolia Holdings, my firm, was up against a flashier bid. backed by a family foundation. 2 rows back sat Evelyn, pearls gleaming under the fluorescent lights. She smiled, the kind of smile that meant she had already rehearsed her victory. If they mock your dinner, build them a room where children will read. When it was my turn, I rose and kept my words simple. Our proposal focuses on safety and access, roof integrity, ADA compliance, local labor contracts. The other firm dazzled the room with animated renderings and buzzwords: vision synergy, community vibrancy. The numbers, however, didn't add up. During the Q&A, I cited line items: contingency, 4%, worker compensation, fully covered, soft costs, itemized. Then I slid 1 page across the table, a time-stamped receipt trail showing money shifted through a private family foundation. I didn't say Evelyn's name. I didn't have to. The paper did the talking. The chair adjusted his glasses. Thank you. Ms. Hawthorne. We will review the discrepancy. No applause, just the quiet shuffle of integrity re-entering the room. Accountability has its own sound. By mid-morning, I stepped outside for air. Houston sun bounced off the marble steps, the kind of light that reveals fingerprints. My phone buzzed. Oak Hollow Elementary. The screen read, Ms. Hawthorne. The counselor said, Alowen had a rough morning. Stomach pain, a bit of crying at recess. No claims of harm, just tension at home. My pulse steadied, but my chest tightened. I'm on her pickup list. May I come now? Of course. I texted Keegan. School called. I'll sit with her. You handle the audit. He replied, Thank you. Mom. 2 words I hadn't heard in months. At the counselor's office, Alowen's little knees swung under the table, a line of crayons arranged like soldiers. She looked up and half smiled. Grandma, she whispered, I made a magnolia. Petals pink, center gold, messy but hopeful. I knelt beside her, matching her rhythm. Grown-ups fix grown-up messes, I told her softly. Your job is to be 8, the counselor observed quietly, then showed us a grounding game. 5 things you see, 4 you can touch. We practiced together. A poster, a pencil, the crayon box, my watch. For the first time in weeks, Alowen laughed. I signed a care plan acknowledgement and added my number to the emergency contact list. Paperwork again, but this time, it was armor, not ammunition. When we stepped outside, the sun had cooled behind a passing cloud. That's when I saw her. Evelyn stood by her beige sedan, sunglasses low, voice sharp enough to cut glass. You embarrassed us in there, she hissed. I kept Alowen close, my hand on her shoulder. We discussed numbers, not names. Her jaw twitched. You'll regret this. Behind me, the counselor stood at the glass door, phone in hand. Witness enough. No, Evelyn, I said quietly. You will document this. I raised my phone, not recording, just visible. The silence that followed was its own verdict. Evelyn turned, lips pressed thin, and got into her car. I led Alowen to mine, buckled her in, and started the engine. In the rearview mirror, she was already drifting to sleep, her hand clutching the magnolia drawing. At the red light. I bowed my head over the steering wheel and whispered, Let light find the dark without me chasing it. A message arrived from Malis. Council requested a public clarification tomorrow. Come prepared. I looked at the golden Houston skyline, at the child sleeping beside me, and exhaled. By Wednesday noon, the microphones would be on, and so would the truth. City Hall smelled faintly of carpet cleaner and ambition. I arrived early, binder in hand, nameplate already waiting. Arliss Hawthorne. The microphone gleamed beneath the fluorescent light, a small metal reminder of how truth carries when spoken plainly. The chamber filled slowly. Committee members, aides, a few local reporters adjusting their cameras. I watched them with the calm of someone who had learned to let silence work for her. Evelyn sat 3 rows back, pearls and posture as polished as ever, flanked by her foundation's attorney. Keegan was across the aisle, shoulders hunched, gaze fixed on the table. I didn't expect rescue from him anymore. I came here for the math, not the apology. Dignity isn't a volume. It's a posture. The chair rapped the gavel. Agenda Item 3, Clarification of Bid Discrepancy, Community Library Renovation, Phase Y. I stood when called, my binder open to the tab marked Exhibits. Madam Chair, I said evenly, I'll speak to the limited scope of the addendum submitted Monday morning. No adjectives, just facts. I read dates, amounts, transfers, each line as dry and factual as a weather report. The clerk entered the exhibits. 1 memo on fee shifting, 1 spreadsheet of concealed soft costs, 1 email chain showing donor interference. When counsel asked the source of the documents, I answered, lawfully obtained, delivered under counsel oversight. Then I said, public money deserves public math, and I stepped away from the mic. The air thickened. The rival representative fumbled through a rebuttal, citing clerical error and third-party miscommunication. The chair leaned forward. Please address Exhibit C, page 3. A rustle of papers, then silence. Evelyn's face froze in something between outrage and fear. Keegan looked down at his hands, the motionless kind of guilt that comes when denial has nowhere left to go. The chair announced a recess. Reporters stood before the echo had faded. The hum of whispered reactions followed me into the corridor. They swarmed the moment I stepped out, cameras, microphones, a dozen faces eager for a sentence that could become a headline. Ms. Hawthorne, are you accusing the foundation of fraud? I'm confirming document, I said. The committee will determine the rest. Another voice shouted, is your family involved? I shifted slightly, blocking Keegan from the lens. My family isn't on the committee, I said. Do you want anyone prosecuted? I smiled faintly. I want the library roof not to leak. The soundbite landed, the microphones fell quiet. Just for a beat, back inside, the gavel returned order. After review, the chair read, Magnolia Holdings bid will proceed. The competing proposal is suspended pending investigation. No applause, just the soft exhale of consequence. Evelyn didn't move. Her lawyer packed the folders without speaking. I closed my binder, nodded to the clerk, and walked out. The door shut behind me like punctuation. Keegan was waiting near the foyer. Mom, he said, voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry. I looked at him. The boy and the man overlapping in the same face. Be better to your daughter than we were to each other, I told him. My phone buzzed, a message from Malis. Transfer verification hash for Mercy. Monday, 9:28 p.m. Chain of custody update. I sent the file confirmation. The original had already been logged with her office, but procedure loved its second signature. Forgiveness was never the eraser. It was the comma. By the time I reached Allen Parkway, the city was turning gold. Afternoon sun bounced off glass towers, making even the old buildings glow like redemption. My dashboard chimed, low fuel, ordinary life, nudging me back to earth. I passed the exit for the motel and didn't slow down. That story no longer belonged to me. It belonged to the law. At a red light, the magnolia pin on my lapel caught a ray of sun. I touched it once, gently. Tomorrow, I thought, I will plant something. The elevator chimed at 42. I watched my reflection in the mirrored wall. Lined eyes, steady mouth, hair pulled back the way I used to before board meetings. The woman looking back wasn't tired, just finished with noise. At Melis's office, the receptionist slid a folder toward me. Blue tabs neat as bookmarks. Drafts for signature, she said. I opened it. Library bid affirmation. Cease and desist to the foundation. Settlement framework. No admission. Full restitution. Public correction. Justice. When it's ready. Doesn't ask for applause. I initialed margins. Underlined dates. Circled one clause that protected Elowin from media contact. Quiet armor for a child who never asked for a headline. In the conference room, opposing counsel waited alone. Mrs. Whitmore will not attend, he said flatly. She will abide by any agreement that limits exposure. Melis pushed the papers forward. Restitution, audited transparency, retraction letter, no contact with me or my granddaughter. He wanted clarification instead of retraction. I leaned forward. Children's rooms will not leak. Truth will not blur. The room went still. After a pause, he nodded. The words stayed. Melis penciled in deadlines, wire by 4, letter by 5, signatures before we stood up. No gavel, just the soft scratch of pens earning their keep. By noon, we walked 2 blocks to the courthouse. Fluorescent lights, ticket numbers, clerks speaking in polite monotone. I filed the addendum, expanded grandparent pickup authorization, therapy continuity, no media consent without my approval. The clerk stamped the form, a small, round thud that sounded like closure. I texted Keegan a photo of the stamp. This secures her quiet time. He replied, "Thank you, Mom. I'll respect it." Small words, but they opened a door I thought was sealed. Back at Melis's, the wire transfer pinged through. Full restitution confirmed in city escrow. Minutes later, a courier dropped an envelope marked Retraction and Apology. It listed errors, acknowledged Magnolia's integrity, withdrew the rival bid. No adjectives, no excuses, just nouns that mattered, dates, figures, names spelled right. I asked Melis to forward it to the committee chair and archive the case under a new label, Room for Reading. Some victories are furniture, built, placed, used. When the afternoon softened, I drove to Oak Hollow. The pickup lane shimmered in the heat, engines idling like sighs. Elowin climbed in with a grin and a drawing, a magnolia tree shading a roof. "Are we done with the loud grown-ups?" she asked. "We're done with the loud part," I said. "The kind part keeps going." She nodded, content. And we shared a peanut butter cracker in companionable silence. At dusk, I carried a sapling to the backyard, a young magnolia with roots still tender. The soil gave easily. The watering can was heavy in the right way. I tied the trunk with soft cloth and watched it stand upright against the amber sky. My phone lit once. A final email from Melis, all signatures complete. I locked the screen, slipped it into my pocket, and let the crickets have the last word. The morning air was softer than it had been all week. I opened the kitchen window, let the light stretch across the counter, and poured coffee into the chipped mug that had followed me through every address. Houston humidity still clung to the screens, but today it felt almost kind. On the table sat 3 things: the magnolia pin, my work gloves, and Elowin's drawing of a roof surrounded by petals. I traced the outline with my fingertip. Some endings don't slam, they click. The phone stayed silent, no new voicemails, no blocked numbers. Silence at last felt like something earned. An email pinged. Award notice. Magnolia Construction, Phase 1. Compliance confirmed. Start date listed. Escrow verified. Another followed, the city's public posting of the rival's withdrawal and retraction. Both neat, both final. I forwarded the notice to Malus. Thank you. Then to Keegan. Read the dates. Be on time. His reply came minutes later. I will. Mom. It wasn't warmth. Not yet, but it was structure. Later that morning, we met at a small one-bedroom apartment in the Heights. Modest, light through clean blinds, a working stove, month-to-month lease, nothing grand, nothing borrowed. He walked through in silence, opening cabinets, testing the faucet. He'd learned not to expect my rescue, only my boundaries. When he signed the lease, I handed him a small key tag engraved, "Start here." "This isn't a reconciliation gift," I said. "It's a fence post. Stay inside it." He nodded. No argument. The lease, the schedule for pickup, the counseling plan. We wrote them down. Paper. Again. Only this time, it kept peace instead of enforcing it. That afternoon, I drove to Oak Hollow Elementary. The counselor met me with a smile that said, "Steady progress." She showed me Elowen's updated plan, weekly sessions, breathing exercises, no media contact without my consent. On the desk sat a sealed envelope addressed to Elowen. Inside, an apology vetted by counsel, to be read with the therapist next week. A truth at her pace, I said, signing the acknowledgement. When Elowen saw me, she ran up waving a paper flower. "We'll plant the library flower tonight," she said. "Yes, sweetheart," I told her. "We'll give it a name." Evening came slow. At the construction fence, the first crew gathered for the groundbreaking. No speeches, no cameras, just hard hats, chalk lines, and the smell of dust warming under sun. The foreman pointed to the blueprint. "We'll start with the roof." Elowen handed me a child's trowel. "For the reading room." We knelt together, pressing soil around the base of a temporary marker. A photographer from the city took one quiet picture for the project file. No flashes, no poses. Work first, stories later. Driving home, the sky dimmed gold to gray. My phone buzzed, an unfamiliar number. I answered anyway. Celeste's voice, careful, brittle. "Arliss, could you—" I stopped her kindly. "Here's the number for legal aid. I wish you steadiness." No slammed doors, no bitterness on just separate paths. That night, Elowen and I carried a small cedar box to the backyard. Inside, we placed the old motel key, the city hall agenda, and a copy of the retraction letter. I let her press the lid shut. "What's inside?" she asked. "Wait, we don't have to carry," I said. Crickets started up in the grass. The porch bulb hummed. We stood by the sapling we'd planted the night before, its leaves catching the faint streetlight like coins. I reached down, touched the soil, and whispered a quiet blessing for what had grown from paper, pain, and patience. The tree was tied. The fence held. I exhaled, slow and deep, feeling the quiet fill in every space where anger had lived. I chose what to keep. The work, the child, the fence, the light. Looking back now, I've learned that silence isn't weakness. It's wisdom earned the hard way. I didn't win through anger or revenge. I found peace by choosing boundaries over noise. We all face moments when we're disrespected, overlooked, or underestimated. But dignity, once you claim it, changes everything. You can rebuild your life quietly. One signed paper, one honest word, one act of calm courage at a time. Maybe you've been there too, trying to protect your peace when others mistake it for surrender. What would you have done in my place? Tell me in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, leave A or comment 1 so I know you're with me. Tell me where you're watching from. I love knowing how far these stories travel. And if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story. Sometimes, the quietest voices have the most to teach us.